Welcome to Fresh Catholic, a podcast for those who are converting, reverting, or simply want a fresh perspective of the Catholic faith to help them to open their hearts and minds to become closer to the love and goodness of Christ. My daily prayer is that I will be a bright light to others, to be filled with the love and light of Christ, so that when people look at me, they see Him radiating out from me for His glory. Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas, and I'm so happy you're here. My guest today is Ed Lawrence, a retired high school theology teacher and founder of Prayers Unite the World, a website that works with over 200 Catholic religious communities and organizations who agree to have their members pray for and with those who submit their prayer requests. This website was established in 2016 by Mr. Lawrence and his former student, IT executive Thomas Wombold, both of Philadelphia. In a tumultuous time, this website is much needed. I hope you enjoy. Well, hello, Edward Lawrence, or as I'm going to lovingly call you, Ed. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, Lori. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming to Fresh Catholic Podcast.
Looking forward to this conversation. See where the Lord leads us.
Yes, I agree. We have been, I don't know if Liliana is your publicist or what, but she and I have been going back and forth, I feel like for months and months, and finally we're sitting down together. So persistence is key.
As is always the case. And Elena is my former student, one of my many former students that are involved with the work I'm doing now.
I think that's
couldn't do it without them.
I think that's wonderful. It does take a team to get some things accomplished, doesn't it?
It does. It does, especially with my, as I mentioned before, my computer inadequacy. If I turn the computer on and it lights up, that's about the extent of my computer literacy. But God has given me all these former students, and without them, as I also said to my wife, I don't know what I would do without them.
That's how I feel about Simon Malderas, my husband and producer. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be talking today because, you know, he's the hidden gem behind the scenes. So you're here today to talk to us about your website, Prayers Unite the World, which is it's growing. It sounds like it's an organization that's growing. So if you could please tell my listeners, how did this start and what was your inspiration for starting this website?
Sure. Actually, the website began, and I'll give you a little background. I taught religious studies for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia for 41 years.
Wow.
And that's true. And what happened was this. I happened to be surfing the internet one night and came across the website of this Trappist monastery in North Africa, where 7 Trappist monks were murdered in the mid-90s. There was a French movie that came out a number of years ago called Of Gods and Men about what happened there. Quite frankly, followers of Osama bin Laden went in, kidnapped 7 of the monks. 2 of the monks hid underneath the bed, and that's how they know, what happened. And these 7 monks were murdered. And I had a picture of them on my wall at Archbishop Ryan High School, Philadelphia. I took the picture from a photocopied from a book called The Martyrs of Atlas. So again, I was surfing the internet, came across the website of that monastery, and Holy Spirit led me to send them an email telling them that I have a picture of your martyred brothers up on my wall at Archbishop Ryan High School, Philadelphia, in the United States. Please pray for my students. Well, to my amazement, within a day or two, I get an email in French, which I then take to the French teacher and said, George, what do they say? And he said, they're praying for your students. So one of those great opportunities, I walk into the classroom with the email in French, told the students what I did, and pointed to the picture and said, so kids, I said, you have people literally around the world praying for you right now. Now, every teacher knows when you say something and it registers, and you could see it in their faces. You could see it when it doesn't register, but I could see that it meant something to them. But truth be told, I just thought, well, that was a one-time event. Let's get back to the lesson plan. What do we have? And I did that. But about a week later, I'm going through the school cafeteria to the faculty dining room, and a cafeteria aide stops me and asks if I could have some prayer said for her daughter-in-law who was having a difficult pregnancy. So I said, yeah, I'll see what we could do. And I sent an email up to the Abbey of the Genesee, the Trappist community in upstate New York. It's about 30 miles south of Rochester, and asked them to pray with this intention. I printed out the homepage, brought it into school, and said, Alice, give this to your daughter-in-law and your son, and let them know there's people pray for them. And it was her reaction. It was that, wow. And I kept thinking, people need to have this kind of experience. But I didn't know anything about what do you do with this. All I knew was that I wanted people to have that experience. So I got together with some of the kids because, as I said, I don't know anything about the computer, but they do. And I said, well, could a program be done that can connect people's prayer requests with these different religious communities? And is there a way of letting the petitioner know who's praying for them? And one student said, Mr. Lawrence, you can do anything with a computer. So then what I did, I went on a fact-finding mission, and I met with the contemplative communities that are within the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, just really to get a sense from them what can be done, that can involve them, that wouldn't be a burden to them, and that could help promote the community in the process. So, a couple of they responded. This one particular Sister Evelyn, who's a Poor Clare up in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, right outside the city, in the Archdiocese, though. And I sat there with her, and the information she was giving me was what I needed to hear. And she said, she questioned, well, how many of these are we going to get? And it was like, well, how many could you handle? And then her second question was, well, we really don't have the personnel to be able to respond directly to these petitioners. So I went back to the kids and said, what can we do? And they said, well, number one, we could program the computer so that they only get no more than one a day, if they want that. And we can program the computer to respond to the petitioner, indicating, here's the communities that are praying for you. Click on the links to know more about them. So then, we have that thing set up. I am going around to the different religious communities and saying to them, if we're able to launch this website, would you be interested in participating? And they all said yes. So then it was a matter of, okay, now how do I get this to come into existence? So what I did was I had this one former student, a fellow named Tom Lombold, who, after graduation, he went down and did his bachelor's degree in computer science at Drexel University, did his master's there. So I often tell people, I don't speak computerese, but he speaks it fluently. So at one point I thought, well, maybe there's a way of even involving the schools. So I went down to the Archdiocese and met with the woman in charge of religion teachers and told her what I was doing. And she said, my God, this is exactly what we're looking for. we're looking for something for the anniversary of the World Meeting of Families. And she goes, and this looks like it's it. And she goes, and there may be some money available to help.
And your ears went ding.
Well, not did they go ding, but here's the interesting thing. I asked this former student to see if he could find me a programmer who could set it up, because it's a somewhat intricate program. And he came back to me, and he told me what it would involve. Okay, so when that woman at the Archdiocese told me there may be some money available, I asked the obvious question: how much? And at that point, I'm hoping for maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000, just something. I have no idea how much it's going to cost. Just give me that. Well, what she didn't know, but I found out, was that former student got back to me, and he said, I found somebody, I checked his work out, he could do it. He said it would take 60 to 80 hours of computer time at $100 an hour. So that's between $6,000 and $8,000. So when I said to the woman, well, how much money might be available for this? The response was around $8,000. And I thought that was just an unusual amount of money. Okay. So that to me was the sign from God, get going. Okay. So we were going to have an event at the school where the bishop is going to come up and bless the room. I had the president of the Blessed Sacrament Sisters, the president of the Grey Nuns. I have Daughters of St. Paul coming down from New York City. I've got the Knights of Columbus, the St. Vincent Paul Society, Abbot Antonucci's coming up from Dalesford Abbey. They have all these people coming to the school for the anniversary of the World Meeting of Families. That's when they wanted it up by. But about 3 weeks before that event, my former student calls me up and says, we have a problem. And I said, what's that? He says, I got a call from the programmer. He doesn't think he can get it done in time. And I'm thinking, I have all these people coming to the school. What are we going to do? We got to do something. So I said, let's see if we can find somebody. Now, truth be told, look, I could have said, okay, all right, folks, listen, it's all for September 19th. We don't have it. We'll let you know whenever it happens. Well, what I did was I checked around and we found somebody. And the beautiful part is this, not only could he do it, and granted, my former student could tweak it, but he could do it on time. And here's the key point. He couldn't do it for any more than the diocese was allotting. Well, he would send me the invoices. Now remember, this is within a 3-week time span. He would send me the invoices, and I would send them downtown, and downtown would cut the check to him. But the total amount of the invoices was $3,200. So, as I told the seminarians at St. Charles Seminary a couple of years ago when I gave them a talk, I said, fellas, the Archdiocese loves it when you get things done on time and way under budget. But that really was the Holy Spirit. You keep walking down that road in faith. God could have somebody around that corner that's meant to be there. Your job is to keep walking down the road in faith. So with that, the website launched, and the other just strange thing is, because I had been working on this thing, there was a situation where I was going to have to retire for a health reason. And I remember I had a conversation with the late Bishop Robert McGinnis, who I'd known him for 50 years. And I told him that it looked like I'm going to have to retire. But I said, I have this idea about this website called prayer. And he said to me, Ed, the Lord could be saying to you, I don't need you in this part of the vineyard anymore. I need you over here. And my response was, well, as long as this is Vineyard, I'm good to go. And that's what happened. Once the website launched, all of a sudden, it just exploded. And thank God for my former students, because quite frankly, they're the ones that are doing the legwork. My IT person, the former student, he's a chief engineer at Comcast. I give him the information to download or upload. He takes care of it from there. From there, there's a problem, he takes care of it. The contact who arranged the podcast, former student. Okay, they're all over the place. One of the fringe benefits of teaching close to 10,000 kids, they're literally all over the place. Even my wife says, "Is there a place you go that you don't bump into some student?" But it's good that we've stayed in contact. So that is what has happened. The other interesting story about how this has exploded, and again, you can't make this stuff up, how these things happen. There is a spirituality conference for men in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia called Man Up. Well, I'm on the steering committee for Man Up. And every year they have this conference where they bring in guest speakers. They have mass, they have confessions, they have adoration. So I always say it's a beautiful day in my book. Anytime I see 1,000+ guys going to confession and going to communion, that's a good day in my book. And the only thing that can make it better is if there was 10,000 guys doing it. Not that I'm greedy for God, but that's how I feel about it. So anyway, I'm on the steering committee, and there was a meeting that was going to be held at this parish on the other side of the archdiocese. So I get into a car with these two other fellas, and we're going to drive down to St. Mary Magdalene and Media. And the one fella says, "Ed, tell Bob about the website." So I tell Bob about the website on the way down there. And the next day he calls me up. He goes, "This should be an EWTN. Would it be okay with you if I reached out to them?" I said, "Bob, go for it. What do I have to lose?" He calls me back the following day. He goes, "I spoke to somebody. They're interested, but they want you to call them." So I called the fella up, and he asked me where their diocese was in terms of this. And I said, if it wasn't for the diocese, this wouldn't be up, because they're the ones that provided the original funding to that program. So, he said to me, "Well, can you get a letter from Archbishop Chaput? Because they really like him down here." And I'm thinking, well, I've met the Archbishop, but socially, just like in a room with other people, that's been the extent of it. But I do know, and did then, one of his auxiliaries, Bishop John McIntyre. So I called Bishop McIntyre, and, I told him what was happening, and I said they'd like me to get a letter from the Archbishop. And McIntyre replied, "Well, would a letter from me suffice?" I said, "All I know is they mentioned his name." Well, the following day, I get an email with an attachment, and the email was from McIntyre, and the attachment was the letter from the Archbishop. I send that down there, and then the second question I was concerned about was, okay, how do I turn to my wife and say, "I'm taking 1,000 out of the bank to fly down to Alabama. I don't know where I'm going." And the result was EWTN took care of everything. My wife drove me to the airport. EWTN picked me up, put me up for a couple of nights, and I don't know how many Catholics there are in the United Arab Emirates, but there's got to be somebody, because we got prayer requests there. From there, we got prayer requests jumped up like 5,000%. And the last thing that I said, when I was being interviewed, was I was asked a question, "What's your hope for the future?" And I said, "I want to saturate the secular with the sacred. I want people to see the face of Christ. I want them to see it in all these Catholic organizations, all these religious communities. It's the face of Christ, and it's out there more than we give credit to in this ever-increasing secular world. So, but, in addition to the responses going up as they did, we got a number of emails. And there were two emails that really jumped out at me. One was from a woman from St. John the Baptist Parish in Clyde, Kansas, saying that she wanted to participate. And at that point, I was just dealing with religious communities and Catholic organizations. Here was this individual. So what I did was I contacted her pastor. The pastor says she's a pillar of the parish. She has this little prayer group. They meet every week. But she is staunch Catholic. Okay. So I connected her basically with the entity would be the parish. In addition to her, I got an email from a serviceman stationed at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And in his email, he mentioned that his wife had passed away 11 months before. And so the anniversary of her death was coming up. And he said there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think of her. And I thought, he needs to feel God's presence in his life. So what I did was I arranged for the woman in Kansas to send in a prayer request with her group for 9 days in succession, culminating on the anniversary of this man's wife's passing. So, the way the website, works is you send in a prayer request, and it basically we channel to different groups, let the person know who's praying for it. So for those 9 days, he saw a list of 10 different religious communities and Catholic organizations around the world that had people praying for his intention. I wanted him inundated with God's love. And I said to my wife, I said, if the only thing we ever accomplish with this website is this, it's worth it. Because we're definitely doing God's work with this. That's what I'm trying to do with the website in general. I want people to see the face of Christ. I want people to experience God in their life just like that woman did in the school cafeteria. And these religious communities and these Catholic organizations and Catholic entities are doing it. This is a way of getting that message out there. The more we get it out there, the more we're planting those seeds of faith. Another example, one of the things that we're doing with with the schools is there was a study the Pew Foundation did a couple years ago that said how few Catholics believe in the real presence of the Eucharist. And when I heard that, first thing I thought was, my God, that has to be some of my former students. That has to be. And they may be out there even unchurched. But if they're unchurched, if they have a connection with any Catholic institution, it's probably going to be their alma mater. They still might have that string. And if that's what we have, that's what we have to use to connect with them, to bring them back into the fold. So what some of the schools are doing is this. They will have someone send in a prayer request, for argument's sake, on the first Tuesday of the month. And they will have it e-blasted out to, say, the current students. The second Tuesday of the month, they'll send in a prayer request and have it e-blasted out to the faculty and staff. The third week, they send it and it'll e-blast it out to all the graduates. And the last week, they'll send it and e-blast it out to all the benefactors. The whole point is this. Within 1 month's time, everyone is being notified that there are people praying for them. We're not hitting them every day. or even every week, just enough to remind them that they're remembered by this Catholic institution. And, as I said to the bishop the other day, we're planting seeds. You never know when that seed is going to tap somebody, they're going to reach somebody, and something good is going to come from that. Because that email could hit that person at the very time when they're wondering, where's God in my life? You never know. Our job is to throw as many seeds out there as we possibly can. The rest is in God's hands. We have to do our part of getting that out there. So it is multifaceted. We're doing a lot more things with it than again I ever imagined. We're just adding. Here's a good example. Carlos Acutis was just made a saint. We have a section of our website where we promote causes for sainthood. Servant of God, venerable, blessed. Carlos Acutis is now taken off because he's a saint. But there's a young woman, 31 years old, from Bismarck, North Dakota, named Michelle Dupont. She died in 2015. She was a member of the group Focus. She is now listed as a servant of God, another great role model for these kids. So we keep doing those kind of creative things.
Right.
And it has gone around.
Well, it sounds like it sounds like this thing is just exploding. It sounds like I have many things I want to talk to you about. So we have to take a quick break. When we come back, I have some questions for you. How does that sound?
That sounds fine.
Okay. We'll be right back.
All right.
What is happening at Fresh Catholic? Thanks for asking. Well, we have a weekly podcast with lots of topics and guests, and Fresh Catholic Daily, the daily Mass readings. Listen on all platforms and watch on YouTube. I also do short videos every day on Instagram and Facebook at Fresh Catholic. Like, share, subscribe, rate, and review. These are such simple ways to help us out. The other ways you can support our mission of drawing people to the faith or back to the faith are by becoming a Patreon or sponsor. Also simple, but so needed. Our website, freshcatholic.com, has an online store with merchandise, a blog, comics, and Fresh Catholic courses with educator Charles Merritt, with the Hail Mary, the Our Father, the Virtues, the Ascension, the Magi, the Visitation, the Ten Commandments, Sacraments and Grace, Sin, Advent, Angels, Lent, Typology, and even some Bible study courses. Wow, that's a lot. Please share all of this with everyone you know and join the Fresh Catholic family. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh. Oh, wait, one more thing. Our typology series by educator Charles Merritt is feeling very unloved. I know, I get it. You see or hear that word, typology, and your eyes glaze over. You stifle a yawn. You might think to yourself, or even say to others, dry, boring, too Old Testament-ish for me. If that's you, then you're missing out, because typology connects the promise of Jesus in the Old Testament and the arrival of Jesus in the New Testament. It's like putting scripture under a microscope and seeing things you never saw before. So head to our website, freshcatholic.com, and give typology some love and attention. You will be amazed. And we're back. So Ed, again, I am so inspired by not only your story, but also, when you have students or when you have a bunch of people around you, especially students, I think it's interesting that they sprung into action. I think they felt, from my point of view, just listening to what you said, it sounds to me like sometimes teenagers or anybody for that matter, need a project. They need something where they matter, where they are needed and necessary. And I think it's in the ways that maybe sometimes we don't know how to do things. I'm also not great at the computer, but when we ask for help, especially if it's somebody who we know has the knowledge or thinks has the knowledge, and then they're able to then spring into action. I'm a doer. I like to get a lot accomplished. But if we don't allow other people to help us out, they're not able to feel necessary, right? So as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I just think it's beautiful that this was incorporated into their lives. This is going to carry out through the rest of their life, because if they're given this opportunity, the odds of them continuing on or encouraging other people to do it as well, I think that's a highly likely possibility. I think you gave me a really good overview. I think you answered a bunch of the questions that I had in my head and written down. But some of the things I'm kind of curious about is, so you made it clear that, people, request their prayers. They're sent out to people, which I think it sounds like it's super organized, which is great. I think it's that makes it easier and runs more smoothly. It sounds like you have a lot of help. But when people do that, is your organization given updates about, like, let's say somebody puts in a prayer request, their prayers are answered. Do they get back to you and say, my prayers were answered, or thank you so much, or?
We've gotten a few back in terms of, like, one of the interesting things that we put into the program, and you'll understand why I did this. We don't do any fundraising. All right, there's a donation button if somebody was to do that, but the one thing I really wanted to make sure we avoided is any hint that, well, we'll pray for you, but give me the money kind of thing. I want to avoid that like the plague, because that's not from God.
Right.
God will provide. But the responses, that we've gotten have been those types of responses. Thank you, for the prayers. So and so was healed. It was comforting. When my mom passed away, that you were praying for us because we were going through a difficult time. I mean, those kinds of things. So, we don't make a big push for even like keeping email addresses. We have it set up where once it is utilized, it disappears. We don't retain it. We don't have a mailing list. And only because I don't want anyone to ever think that there is that connection. I want to avoid that like the plague.
Or it also, I would imagine, that helps where if somebody knows that, like, I'm glad you said that so my listeners would know that, because when you do a prayer request, it should be just a prayer request. It shouldn't be like you're saying, $10 for a prayer, and also then to be then bothered by whoever constantly.
Exactly.
What I would imagine if I was in that position and I reached out and said, please put me in your prayers for this. And then I was being, I don't want to use the word harass. I can't think of another word I want to use right now. But when you're getting constant emails, you're thinking, well, now that's just adding to my stress and my angst, right, and that's not why I wanted to pray. I need people to help me pray. I'm praying to the Lord, but I need people to help me pray to the Lord. And it needs to be just as simple as that. No strings attached.
Sure.
We'll be right back. What does it mean to live a life of faith? What does it mean to live as a Catholic Christian? Hi, this is Bishop Kevin Sweeney, host of the podcast Beyond the Beacon. Join me as we unravel and discuss the mysteries of our faith, of the church, of living as Catholic Christians. Be inspired by engaging interviews with priests and seminarians, deacons, religious, women and men who live the life of faith day by day here in our Diocese of Patterson, in food pantries and classrooms and parishes and ministry. How is God working in their lives today? How is God working in our lives? Join me as I ask them and be part of the conversation on Beyond the Beacon. Listen and follow Beyond the Beacon wherever you get your podcasts, or watch it on my YouTube channel. Please check the show notes for more details. Thank you and God bless you.
And I'll tell you where the inspiration for that kind of thought came from. the Abbey of the Genesee, again, up in upstate New York, many, many years ago. I went on a retreat there. And in the retreat guidelines, it mentioned, and I still have the guidelines, I still have the paper. It mentions about when the monks will be praying, down at the monastery. If you want to volunteer to help out in the bakery, that type of thing. And then it mentioned fee. And this is what it said. I almost remember this almost word for word. It went something like this. The retreat house depends upon the donations of those who make use of it for its upkeep. There is no set fee. Give what you can afford, but do not be troubled if it's very little or even nothing. Now think about that. Somebody has to pay for the electric, somebody has to pay for the heat, somebody has to pay for the food on the table. And they would think that the people who make use of it are going to do that. But they know that you're going there to develop your spiritual life. And if that's what you do, and that's good. God will provide somehow. So give what you can afford, but do not be troubled if it's very little or even nothing. Now, I have had some people say to me, are you crazy? You got to do something. I want to be as far removed from that kind of thing as possible. And as I said, even in terms of the ministry itself, nobody gets paid. Everybody volunteers. I got a lot of volunteers. I kind of like it that way. I do know there's some positive things we want to do with the website that may require getting some money to pay somebody to do. I understand that. But I definitely never wanted to have a situation where we would have a list and we would be sending somebody something and say, hey, congratulations, please, if you can donate, please do. We have a button on the website. Fine. Other than that.
Well, and I think that's how it should be because, for example, like Fresh Catholic, we've been doing this now for almost 3 years. We don't make any money at all. We are putting in thousands of hours of our time and effort. It would be great if we would get sponsors. It would be great if we would get Patreons and donations. It would be great because then we could take things to another level. But, and when God wants to provide that, he will. He's providing, we're up and going for 3 years and we're making progress. And, as far as I can tell, helping people in some small way. And so that in itself is, I didn't come into this to become famous and become a millionaire. My goal was, to bring people to the faith or back to the faith. And and like my goal in the beginning was if I can get one person to, become Catholic. And I've been told, that there's been a few people and it's like, well, the one person was a blessing. I feel like really happy about that. So if I can help people, but, just in all honesty, if you want to donate to this website, we're going to put a link in the show notes for this website. This would be a beautiful thing to donate to if you don't have anything else to donate to, or even if you do, anything would help. So, make sure you go to the website. We will put a link for that. What I also wanted to say, I've had personal experience, not with your website, with your prayer requests website, but years ago in 1990, I was in a horrific car accident and we lived in a mountain community. It was when I was a Protestant Christian. I'd just become Christian like the year before, no religion prior to that. And I was in a horrific car accident. I truly believed that Satan was trying to wipe me and my children out because I was this very in love with Jesus, fresh new Christian. And I was, in fact, almost killed. And so were my children. And my mother-in-law at the time, it was when I was married before Simon. My mother-in-law, who was a very, very strong Christian woman, she put us on these prayer chains. And I had no idea, and this was a long time ago, so it was before any internet, anything like that. It was old school phone calls, she was just doing it like that. But I remember her telling me and my husband at the time, that she put us on all these prayer chains. And I honestly, because I was new to the religious world, I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I didn't understand what that was. And she explained, that she would put out the word, and then those people would put out the word. It was just like, that's how it worked. And so we were in prayer chains all over the world. And miraculously, I was saved. My children were saved. My son and I definitely have, what's the word I want to use? Like permanent damage from the accident. My daughter didn't, thank the Lord, but my son and I definitely have permanent damage from it. But we're alive, and the prayers worked. And I knew that we were on these prayer chains, and the power of prayer in itself, when one person is praying with all sincerity and all, just surrendering to the Lord and his, whatever he decides, his will. But when you do a prayer chain or prayer, these prayers are powerful. They are powerful. And I think it's the belief, the faith of the people. Sometimes the people you're praying for aren't religious. They don't know the Lord. They don't, but the person praying does. The person praying does know the Lord. The person praying does have faith and belief. And they're praying because they know they're going to get an answer. It might not be the answer that everybody on earth thinks is the right answer, but whatever it is, it's God's will. And the people praying know that, believe it, feel it, and have the faith.
And that's the key thing is the faith that God's going to answer it in some way, okay? And as they always say, well, sometimes it might not be the answer you want, et cetera, that kind of thing. When I was teaching, I would share a story with my students after my first year there. And it really was a great story of persistence in prayer, not to give up. And it falls into the category of, this is one for the books. Story goes like this. I had a student my first year at Ryan, Archbishop Ryan, and I got her in the middle of the school year because at that time we would have 5 groups of kids in the fall, 5 groups of kids in the spring. And around Christmas or around December, because I remember the Christmas tree in the lobby, I see this girl crying her eyes out to the dean of students. And I walk by, and you say that silent prayer to God, please comfort this poor kid. But I didn't know why she was crying. Well, second semester rolls around, and she's in my 8th period class. I find out why she was crying. She had her car stolen from the school parking lot. So I begin the class with a prayer, and I always ask if anybody has any special intentions. So, if anybody has special intentions, Kathy raises her hand for my car. The next day, say the prayer, any intentions? My car. Weeks go by, my car. Okay? At one point, I was talking to a friend of mine who was a cop in the Philadelphia Police Department. I said, here's the situation. What's the chances of this kid getting their car back? And he said to me, how long's it been? I said, a couple months. He goes, forget it. He goes, that car is either stripped or is in another state. She'll never see that car again. Well, I don't have the heart to come into school the next day and say, is anybody have any special intentions? Or when Kathy raises her hand, say, Kathy, God speaking through Officer Giordano of the Philadelphia Police Department said no. I can't do that. All right? So, Kathy's car. All right? Another couple weeks go by. I come into school in the morning. The kids are in the hallways, ready to go into their homerooms. And I see Kathy walking towards me with this big smile on her face. She goes, guess what, Mr. Lawrence? they found my car. And I went, they did? And then I went, of course they did, Kath. You prayed, and then that's what happened. And then she told me what had happened was some girl ran a red light on the Roosevelt Boulevard in Northeast Philadelphia. Cop pulls her over. She doesn't have an owner's card. The cop checks the vehicle identification number on the car, and it matched Kathy's car. The people who stole it put obviously new locks in it, but also gave it a new paint job, put air shock absorbers in, and a stereo tape deck. So Kathy got her car back better than when it was stolen. Okay? I am not making that up.
That's a great story.
A couple of years go by, and I'm teaching I have a class, and Kathy is now the president of the Alumni Association, and I just happen to be the moderator. So she comes into school, and she knocks on my door, and she says, "Miss Otis, could I get some alumni stuff in the closet in the back?" So I said, "Yeah, Kathy." So she's walking down the first aisle along the blackboard, and it dawned on me, this is a teachable moment. So I said, "Hey, kid, do you remember this time I told you about the girl whose car was stolen? And she prayed every day, and she got it back better than when it was stolen?" And then, yeah, I says, "And there she is." and Kathy said, "You're still telling them that, right?" I said, "Oh, yeah, that really happened." "Yes, it did." But it's one of those, again, teachable moments, but it's a really a good example of you pray. Leave the rest to God.
Well, and also the fact that he, again, he's going to give us whatever he decides, but sometimes, we are praying for certain things, and he has a better thing in mind. Like, we think we want a certain thing, and then it's like, but he knows the ultimate what's going to happen. And so who are we? We're just humans, but that's a great story. That's a super great story.
Well, I should add that my sister told me when I told her the story, she said, "Well, can you pray that my old car gets stolen and I get a Mercedes back?" I said, "No, don't push it, Linda. Don't push it."
That's so funny. Let's see. What was I going to say? This is an odd question. I don't think I mean it how it sounds, but it's like a two-part question, and the first part might sound strange, but are you privy to people's prayer requests? Like, do you see them, or does only the people who sees them? And I'm just wondering, the only reason I'm asking that, because I wouldn't think that you would,
Sure.
There would be a privacy issue, but the more of what I'm wondering, if you have any knowledge, is I wonder what is a tip, like the most requested prayer. What type of thing are people praying for, I wonder?
My sense it varies, but to answer your initial question, no, I don't see it. We don't see it. It goes right into to the computer, and what the computer does, well, it's programmed. Computer gets it, and then at random, it will pick 10 of the different religious communities or Catholic religions that we have somebody lined up to receive that prayer request. They'll get it. Okay, I don't see it. I won't see it. The only thing that even that I might see, or that Tom, my IT person, would say, are the names of the religious communities that have received prayer requests. And one reason why we do that, obviously, is just for making sure that everything's working properly, kind of thing. But we personally, don't see that. What the computer does is, if there is, obviously we have filters for certain things. So for language and that type of thing, it'll bleep it out. But other than that, we don't see it. And at the end of the month, from what my IT prayer, at the end of the month, the whole page gets wiped out, kind of thing. Whatever it's on.
What do you suppose people are praying like, just from your own, just like off the top of your head, like your own
Sure.
personal opinion? What do you think, like, people are praying for?
Well, based on the prayer request that I get, because I'm one of the people that receives a prayer request, what I get mostly are for people who have, loved ones dealing with health issues. Uh, for the most part, that's it. Some for jobs, some for peace in the world. Get something that'll pray for the situation in the Ukraine, etc. So we'll get some of that. But I would say, from what I see, it just seems to be a lot of it deals with please pray for so and so who's in a given situation. I know, for example, I'll get one, and it's coming. It brief it to the point. It's for a health issue. For example, Father so and so who's dealing with a tumor. That's one I remember recently. Who's dealing with a tumor. Please pray for me. He's a very good man. Thank you, from Italy. So whoever it's somebody in Italy, because there's a from Italy. So we get those kinds of things, and that really has been very, very touching. We've also been doing this, and I should add, connecting different groups. For example, a couple of years ago, we had students from one of the Catholic high schools in Philadelphia have the Zoom experience with Pope John Paul II Academy in Uganda. And as I said to the bishop that I saw a couple of days after, I said, what did it for me wasn't just the fact that they were talking about what do you do for fun, what do you study, what do you eat, but the fact that here are these two groups, one from Philadelphia and one from Uganda, different continent, different countries, different races, facing each other, 8,000 miles apart, and beginning the session by praying the Our Father. That was a prayer that was uniting the world. Those kinds of things are all possible, and that's where, when those students in Uganda had asked for prayers. Funny, they usually ask for the success of their school. They're really, really poor, but from what I've seen, no one asked for anything personal. It's always, for the school, for the spirit, etc. Those are the good things, and at the end of the day, that's what I love to see. I love to see that type of experience. But like I said, to answer your question, the majority that I've seen, and it might be like a 60% type of thing, it deals with healing, that type of thing.
Well, I definitely think, you'd have to be living under a rock to not realize that there's a lot of stress and anxiety and angst in the world. And I just think, I think this is a beautiful way for people to get a lot of support from a lot of people they don't even know, but that are praying for them. Again, I think prayer is super powerful, prayed however, but, with mass people praying for it, I think that's a beautiful thing. So I'm just going to encourage my listeners, like I said, to go to the link in the show notes and donate if you can, whatever you can. That would be great, because they're not asking, but there is a donation button. So that would be much, much needed. And I'm sure that people could reach out to you if they would like to be a part of this group. They can just email you at the website, correct?
Yeah, exactly. There's a line on the website you can go to, and I will get it. prayersunitetheworld.org. And if they want, they can even send it to my personal email, edlawrence728@gmail.com.
There you go. You have his personal email. Now you can email him directly. Look at that.
That's true. I get everything, but the good thing is just that connection and that sense that we're all in this together. If it's no big deal to care about somebody else and to let people know that they're being cared for. you never know when that person needs to feel God's love, and you could be the vehicles from that.
Absolutely. And also, a lot of times a lot of people think that they're in control of their lives, or some people don't have a relationship with God, or they don't have a relationship with Jesus. And so, sometimes people don't even know how to pray for themselves, or they don't pray often. And I do think, we have to put everything in God's hands. And it's not that the people that you're asking to pray, they can't change, themselves, what's happening to you, but they can definitely pray for you, much like saints. There's a misconception about saints that we pray to the saints. We don't pray to the saints. It's the same thing that you're asking, when people send in a prayer request, we ask saints to pray for us. We don't think the saint is going to make something happen, but they're a conduit to our Lord. Same with the Blessed Mother. She's a conduit to our Lord. We can be conduits to the Lord, because sometimes, when we all pray to the Lord, he's probably going, I know, stop. But there's the power in prayer. So I just, I really encourage people to use this site. I think it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. Is there anything you want to say that you didn't get to say yet before I let you go?
No, just the fact that anything that we can do in the sense of promoting the faith, and especially, let me just add, in terms of those people who feel, where is God in my life? The motto that we on our brochures is, if you think you're alone and no one cares, think again. And now they find out that there are people that are praying for them. They send a response to that prayer request, and they get something back. They're not alone. God is with them. And it could be at that very moment when they've given up hope. God's with them. God's with them. And he gave them this beautiful institution, the Catholic Church, with all of these great religious communities, Catholic organizations, and individuals. And here's a good example, Lori. Years ago, religious communities evolved, and religious communities have been shrinking. But in this age of the laity, individuals like what you're doing, what I'm doing, what other people doing, the Spirit is saying something, and it's basically saying to the laity, get moving, okay? As I often have said, we have to make sure that person sitting in that pew realizes their faith is something more than just 1 hour on a Sunday morning, okay? And that when they go out at the end of that Mass, having just received the Lord, when they go out, they are the face of Christ to those people out there. People are going to look at them, and they don't, as St. Francis of Assisi said, preach the gospel every day, and when necessary, use words. Well, how do you preach without words? By your actions. And if we have more people doing that, that's the face of Christ getting out there. Okay? We don't have to say anything. Our actions do the speaking for us. So I would hope that the people realize that there's a loving God, and he gave them this beautiful institution, the church, with the different priests, nuns, the sacraments, etc. I mean, all that is there, and it works.
It does work.
Yeah.
And on that, I'm going to end this episode. It works.
Thank you, Lori.
Well, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best of luck. And I think, you are blessed and you're blessing others. So thank you so much. And thank you all for coming today. Thank you. Love you. Bye. Thank you for joining me today. Now go out and be a bright light in someone's life. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh. Fresh Catholic is produced, edited, and recorded in Ventura, California.